Namaskar and a warm welcome to this series of lecture. Myself, Dr. Praveen Kumar Sahu, belonging to Government Sama Prasad Mukherjee College, Sitapur, Chhattisgarh, India. And this is a lecture pertaining to MSc Mathematics second semester of Sant Gehra Guru University, Sarguja, Ambikapur, Chhattisgarh. And the paper is first paper, Advanced Abstract Algebra Part 2, and the unit is 30 minutes. And this is my sixth lecture on this 30 minute. And the topic of this lecture is a very important topic in this 30 minute, primitive element theorem. So let's see the outline of the lecture. In this lecture, we are going to discuss primitive element theorem. But before discussing that theorem, we have to define what is a primitive element. So let's see. Suppose we have a field extension f over some base field k such that f is equal to alpha adjoint to k. Then we say that this f is a simple extension of k and that alpha is known as primitive element of f over k. For example, if we have GCD of n and d is equal to 1, then alpha is equal to e to the power 2 pi I d over n is a primitive element for the extension of rational obtained by adjoining all the nth root of 1. Means we can say if you have algebraic number a1 a2 all the way to an, it is always possible to find a single algebraic number b such that a1 a2 all the way an can be expressed as a polynomial in b with rational coefficient. Then this number b is called a primitive element of the extension field a1 a2 adjoint an over rational. Means we forget all this element a1 a2 all the way an and we replace it by a single element. In other way, we can say an algebraic number b is a primitive element of a1 a2 an adjoint rational over rational if and only if a1 a2 an adjoint rational is equal to b adjoint q. Means in place of all this element we can write a single element b. For example, a primitive element for root 2 and root 3 adjoint to rational over rational is given by beta is equal to root 2 plus root. This beta is primitive element because we can obtain root 2 and root 3 by using this formula. Now let's discuss the topic of this lecture, primitive element. This theorem says that a finite separable extension is simple. Means in particular, if k is a finite field or is of characteristic 0, every finite extension of field k is of the form gamma adjoint to k. So what we given? Let's we have given a finite extension f over k and f is obtained by adjoining a1 a2 all the way to ar to field k, and here a2 a3 all the way to ar are separable over k. Notice here that we are not talking about a1, so a1 may or may not be separable. Then if there exists a gamma belonging to f such that f can be written as gamma adjoint to k, means we can rewrite f is equal to gamma adjoint to k. Means forget about all the elements a1 a2 all the way to ar and replace it by a single element gamma. That is why it is called a primitive element theorem. So we are replacing number of such element to a single element. Now the proof of this theorem is divided into two parts. First part is the finite field. So let's see. So consider a finite extension f of finite field k. So our base field k is finite and the finite extension f will also be finite. Since f is finite, we can consider its multiplicative group f star. So we draw 0 here, 0 out of f, and we have f star. That is multiplicative group without 0. So this multiplicative group is finite precisely because f is finite. Now this multiplicative group will be cyclic. So we know this from the property that we have already seen that multiplicative group f star is finite, then it will be cyclic. Now let gamma is the generator of this multiplicative group. Since this multiplicative group is generated by a single element gamma and the 0 is obviously in this field k, so f can be obtained by adjoining gamma to k. So we can write f is equal to gamma adjoint to k. So this proves our theorem for the finite part. Now let's see the infinite part. Now we come to the infinite field k. For infinite field we need to prove for r is equal to 2. Means we start like this. If the theorem is true, primitive element theorem is true, we can adjoin this two element a1 a2 to g1. So this will become g1 a3 a4 all the way to a1. Then we can adjoin a3 and a3 and g1 to get g2. Then it will become g2 a4 a5 all the way to a. if we keep adjoining these, at the end we will get a single element gamma. So this proves our theorem. In place of all this, we are writing a single element gamma. So we start with r is equal to 2. So now consider n field key which is obtained by adjoining alpha and beta to key, and we want to replace this alpha and beta by single element gamma. Means we want to prove that in place of alpha beta we have a single element gamma. So we have noticed that we have beta separable here and alpha may or may not be separable. So we start with minimal polynomial. So minimal polynomial for the element alpha b f over base field k, and minimal polynomial for element beta will be g over base field k. Now if degree of f is s and degree of g is t, then a1 a2 all the way to as are with the root of f, and b1 b2 all the way to bt are the roots of g. And the roots of f a1 a2 all the way as are over some field m which is over some base over field f, and since beta is already separable, we are not taking about any extra field here, and alpha is may or may not be separable, so we have to take this field extension m over f. Now we set first root a1 as alpha and b1 as beta. So we are starting with a1 as alpha and b1 as beta. It means let's focus on the first root, and then we will take care about rest of the root, this a2 to as and b2 to beta. Now we can let suppose gamma is equal to alpha plus c beta. So we want to set at the end this gamma for alpha and beta, and notice here that c is the element of base field k. Then the polynomial gx will lies in gamma adjacent to k. Why? Because minimal polynomial g is over k, so g lies in the k of x, so it must lies in the larger field gamma adjacent to k of x. Now f of x is a field over k of x. Now when we introduce gamma, this gamma may or may not be polynomial in k of x, but this gamma must be polynomial in gamma adjacent to k. So this f of gamma minus cx must belong to gamma adjacent to k. So both the polynomial g of x and f of gamma minus cx belong to gamma adjacent to k x. Now we put beta here, then g of beta is equal to 0, because g is a minimal polynomial corresponding to beta, and we have chosen beta as b1, the root of g, so we have g of beta is equal to 0. Now putting beta here, what we have, f of gamma minus c beta. Now from here we notice that gamma minus c beta will be alpha, so what we have, f of alpha is equal to 0, because alpha is the root of f, because alpha is the minimal polynomial corresponding to f is the minimal polynomial corresponding to this element alpha, and we have chosen alpha as a1, the root of f, so we have f of alpha is equal to 0. From here we notice that beta is the common root for g of x and f of gamma minus cx. Beta is the common root for this both of these polynomial which belong to gamma adjacent to k. Now we will adjust c so that beta is the only common root of that two polynomial. So what we claimed that GCD of gx and f of gamma minus cx is equal to x minus beta. Now we want to prove that beta is the only common root for g of x and gamma of sigma of x. Let our claims hold, then we are saying we are adjusting c in this in such a way that this is going to hold, that we are only worrying about first two roots of alpha and beta, a1 and b1, and so the other root a2 a3 all the way to as and b2 b3 all the way to bt do not cause problem, they do not come out of the dominance. Now if our claim hold, we use the following fact. The fact is that greatest common divisor of two polynomial has coefficient in the same field. Now gx and f of gamma minus cx has coefficient in k of gamma, gx and f of gamma minus cx has coefficient in gamma adjacent to k. Then the GCD x minus beta will also be polynomial in gamma adjacent to kx. So x minus beta will also have coefficient in gamma adjacent to k. So we have x minus beta is a polynomial in the polynomial has coefficient in the same field. So notice in particular we have beta is a constant here. That implies beta lies in k of gamma, because g of x is a polynomial in gamma adjacent to k and beta is root of it, so its must be lies into gamma adjacent to k gamma. Now gamma already lies in k of gamma, which is obvious, and c is a constant which lies in the base field k. We have already seen that. Then it must always lies into gamma adjacent to k, and here we have shown beta lies in the gamma adjacent to k. So gamma minus c beta will lies in gamma adjacent to k. This implies alpha, which is equal to gamma minus c beta, will also lies into gamma adjacent to k. That implies we adjoint alpha beta to k to get a gamma adjoint to k, because this both of this alpha beta can be generated by gamma. So this proves our theorem. When we can replace this alpha beta by the gamma. Now we have to just prove the claim to in the proof. Means we want to GCD of this to be x minus beta. So to avoid the other rules, a to a3 all the way to as and b to b3 all the way to bt is to adjust c. Here we have generated gamma as alpha plus c beta, because some other roots a to a3 all the way to as and b to b3 all the way to may cause problem. We could have situation something like that. Like here what we have, g of beta is equal to 0 and f of gamma minus c beta is equal to 0. We could have situation g of beta j is equal to 0, or we can say f of gamma minus cbj is equal to 0, but we don't want to this to be 0. This can be 0 only if this is equal to some polynomial, some root ai of alpha. So we don't for this to not to be 0, we don't want to be gamma minus cbj is equal to a, because if this is equal to 0, bj will be the another root, and here we have claimed that beta is the only common root. So we don't want b1 as beta is the only common root, so we don't want any other bj to be the common root. So what we are doing, we are adjusting c. How? We are written gamma as alpha plus c beta. Now replace x here and writing alpha plus x beta as alpha I plus x bj. Here I and j both are not equal to 1. So we don't want f of gamma minus cbj to 0. Therefore, to solve this equation where I goes from 2 to s and j goes from 2 to t, and we get x is equal to ai minus alpha and beta minus bj. Means we want to avoid the rules a to a3 all the way to as and b to b3 all the way to bt. Thus we solve this equation to get x is equal to this. Now for only this value of x, gamma minus c of bj is equal to ai. So since we have finite number of roots, we have finitely many solutions, we can choose c which is different from this finite number of value, because for only this finite of number of value we have gamma minus cj is equal to ai, then bj will be the another common root, and we don't want to that situation. So by avoiding these roots, by choosing c different from this finite number of value, we can obtain a condition where gamma minus cbj is equal to ai. We can avoid that situation. So because we have chosen c carefully, so we have only one common root beta, and this proves the claim, and this ends the proof of our theorem. Notice that this is a very constructive, because we have started with one root of f and one root of g, and then make sure that other root a to a3 all the ways and b to b3 all the way to bt does not cause problem by constructing c in this way, x belonging to z. So this is a very constructive proof. So this is the idea how we can prove primitive element theorem. So in this lecture we have discussed what is a primitive element and what is the primitive element theorem, which is a very important topic in the third unit. So that's all for today's lecture. Thank you.